The Tapestry of Lies. Olivia Reed traced her finger along the rim of her coffee mug, watching steam rise in lazy spirals as she waited for Ethan at their favorite cafe. The autumn rain tapped gently against the window, creating a rhythm that matched her anxious heartbeat. 3 months into their relationship, and Olivia had never felt so alive, or so confused. Ethan Walsh was a dream come to life, a talented musician with soulful eyes and a smile that made her forget the world. When they'd met at her gallery opening, the connection was immediate and electric. His passion for music mirrored her dedication to art, and soon they were inseparable, painting and composing their love story with broad, colorful strokes. "Sorry I'm late," Ethan said, sliding into the seat across from her. His dark hair was damp from the rain, droplets clinging to his leather jacket. He leaned across the table and kissed her, his lips warm against hers. "Recording session ran long." Olivia nodded, swallowing the question that had been burning inside her since yesterday. "How was Portland? You didn't call last night." "Dead battery," he explained smoothly. "The venue was amazing, though. Packed house." She watched his hands as he spoke, the hands she'd memorized in quiet moments, the same hands that now seemed to belong to a stranger. "That's funny," she said quietly, "because Mia saw you at Riversong Bar last night, here in Seattle." The color drained from Ethan's face, his practiced smile faltering. "I don't," Olivia interrupted, placing her phone on the table between them. "I found these." The screen displayed a series of text messages she'd discovered, while borrowing his tablet, messages to someone named Natalie, filled with intimacies that mirrored what he'd shared with Olivia. "It's not what you think," Ethan stammered, reaching for her hand. Olivia pulled away, her heart breaking even as her mind cleared. "Then what is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been living 2 lives." The truth spilled. Out in fragments, Natalie Chen, a pianist he'd met in Portland 6 months before meeting Olivia. The secret apartment. The lies about his touring schedule that allowed him to split time between 2 cities, 2 women, 2 lives. "I never meant to hurt you," he whispered, his voice cracking. "It just happened, and then I couldn't figure out how to end it with either of you." "I love you both, in different ways." Olivia laughed bitterly, tears threatening to spill. "Love doesn't look like this, Ethan. Love doesn't require a schedule and an elaborate web of lies." She stood, gathering her coat and scarf, suddenly needing air that wasn't shared with him. Around them, the cafe continued its normal rhythm. Baristas calling out orders, customers typing on laptops, all oblivious to her collapsing world. "Olivia, please," Ethan begged, following her to the door. "Let me explain. We can work through this." The rain had intensified, matching her mood as she turned to face him one last time. "There is no we anymore," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "I deserve someone whose love doesn't come with an itinerary." As she walked away, letting the rain mask her tears, Olivia felt something unexpected beneath the pain, a flicker of relief, like she'd been carrying a weight she hadn't recognized until it was gone. The truth, however painful, had set something free within her. She didn't look back to see Ethan standing in the rain, watching her disappear into the gray Seattle afternoon, boarding past to nowhere. Olivia's apartment felt both empty and suffocating in the days that followed. Ethan's presence lingered in the books he'd left on her nightstand, in the playlist they'd created together, in the indentation on his side of the bed. His calls and messages piled up, each one a fresh wound she couldn't bear to touch. "You need to block him," said Zoe, her best friend since college, sprawled on Olivia's couch with a glass of wine. "Or better yet, let me answer and tell him exactly where he can go." Olivia managed a small smile. "I need closure, not vengeance." "Why not both?" Zoe raised an eyebrow, her protective instincts flaring. He doesn't deserve your mercy, Liv. Maybe not, but Olivia couldn't shake the conversation she'd overheard at the gallery yesterday. Two women discussing a boyfriend who'd been caught between relationships, unable to choose until someone made the decision for him. That night, after Zoe left, inspiration struck as Olivia stared at the travel brochure Ethan had brought home months ago, Portland's skyline glossy against the paper. She opened her laptop, fingers trembling slightly as she navigated to the airline website. 2 days later, she texted Ethan to meet her at the park where they'd spent countless Sundays sketching and dreaming. He arrived looking hopeful, the shadows under his eyes suggesting sleepless nights. Separate skies, Portland greeted Ethan with unrelenting rain and the hollow feeling of homecoming without celebration. He'd taken the flight, not out of obedience to Olivia's ultimatum, but because facing Natalie was the only path toward any kind of redemption. His apartment in the Pearl District, the one Natalie had helped him find, the one Olivia never knew existed, felt like a stage set rather than a home. Framed photos of him and Natalie smiled from the bookshelf, mocking his duplicity. "Why are you back early?" Natalie asked when she arrived, her face lighting up at the surprise. Her long dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, flecks of clay still visible on her hands from the pottery studio where she taught. The truth poured out of him like poison from a wound. His relationship with Olivia, the double life, the ticket that had forced his hand. Natalie listened in stunned silence, her expression shifting from confusion to hurt to fury. "How could you?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "I trusted you. We talked about building a future together." "I talked about futures with both of you," he admitted, the words bitter on his tongue. "I convinced myself it wasn't really lying if I meant every word in the moment I said it." "Get out," Natalie said quietly, dignity wrapped around her like armor. "I don't know who you are, but it's not who I thought I loved." That night, Ethan checked into a downtown hotel, staring at the ceiling as rain lashed against the windows. Both women had now excised him from their lives with surgical precision, leaving him alone with the person he'd been running from all along, himself. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Olivia found unexpected freedom in solitude. She threw herself into her artwork, producing a series that her gallery owner called transformative. She reconnected with friends she'd neglected during her relationship with Ethan, joined a community garden, and adopted a one-eyed rescue cat named Vincent. "You look good," Zoe observed over brunch one Sunday, 3 months after the ticket incident. "Like, genuinely good, not the fake, 'I'm fine' you were pulling before." Olivia considered this. "I am good. Not perfect, but I'm starting to recognize myself again." "Any regrets about sending him away?" Olivia watched a young couple at the next table, heads bent close in conversation, and felt a pang of nostalgia rather than envy. "Only that I didn't do it sooner." What she didn't say was that sometimes, in quiet moments, she wondered where Ethan was, if he'd changed, if Natalie had forgiven him. Not because she wanted him back, but because forgiveness seemed like such an impossible summit from where she stood, one she wasn't sure she'd ever be ready to climb. Unknown to her, Ethan had begun that climb in earnest. After weeks of sleeping on a friend's couch, he'd found a therapist who specialized in relationship patterns and commitment issues. He'd taken a job teaching music at a community center rather than pursuing gigs that would feed his ego. He'd started journaling, confronting the childhood abandonment that had left him constantly seeking validation and terrified of being alone. Two broken hearts beat under separate skies, each finding their own rhythm in the aftermath of destruction. Neither knew if their paths would ever cross again or if some stories were better left without a final chapter. "Thank you for coming," Olivia said, keeping distance between them on the bench. "I'd go anywhere for a chance to fix this," he replied, reaching for her hand. She pulled away, removing an envelope from her bag. "That's exactly what I'm offering you, a chance to go somewhere." Confusion crossed his face as he opened it, revealing a one-way ticket to Portland, scheduled for the following morning. I don't understand. It's simple, Olivia said, surprising herself with her calm voice. You've been living half a life in two places. I'm giving you the opportunity to make it whole. In Portland, with Natalie. Olivia, I don't want— What? You want stopped mattering the moment you decided to lie to us both. She stood, autumn leaves crunching beneath her boots. The ticket's non-refundable. Use it or don't, but either way, we're done. As she walked away, the weight on her chest began to lift. For the first time since discovering his betrayal, Olivia felt like she could breathe again, not because she was free of him, but because she had reclaimed her power. That evening, she deleted their photos, packed his remaining belongings into a box for his friend to collect, and stood before her easel for the first time in weeks. The canvas remained blank for hours until, just before midnight, she began to paint not the darkness she'd been drowning in, but the first strokes of a sunrise. Weathering the storm 8 months had passed since Olivia bought that one-way ticket, and Seattle had cycled through seasons, winter's chill giving way to spring's renewal and now summer's warmth. Her gallery exhibition, Fracture Lines, had garnered critical acclaim, with several pieces already sold on opening night. To new beginnings, toasted Lucas, the architecture professor who'd been visiting her gallery regularly for the past 2 months. His eyes, warm and steady, held none of the shadows she'd grown accustomed to searching for in Ethan's. Olivia clinked her champagne glass against his. And honest endings. They'd been dating casually, museum visits, coffee between his lectures and her studio sessions, conversations that stretched into the night without expectation or pressure. Lucas knew about Ethan, not because Olivia was haunted by him, but because she'd promised herself transparency in all future relationships. I have something for you, Lucas said as they walked along the waterfront later that evening. He handed her a small wrapped package. Inside was a handcrafted compass, its face elegantly detailed. It's beautiful, she murmured, running her fingers over the cool metal. I noticed you have maps all over your studio walls, he explained. You told me once that after Ethan, you felt like you'd lost your direction. I thought this might be a reminder that you found it again. The gesture brought unexpected tears to her eyes, not because it was grand or expensive, but because it was thoughtful in a way that showed he'd been paying attention. That night, lying awake beside the compass on her nightstand, Olivia realized she was finally ready to welcome someone new into her life. The pain of betrayal had weathered into wisdom rather than walls. In Portland, Ethan had weathered storms of his own making. After losing his teaching position due to budget cuts, he'd taken a risk and opened a small recording studio, channeling his understanding of music into helping other artists find their voice. The humility of starting over had taught him patience. The solitude had taught him self-reliance. His therapist, Dr. Winters, had helped him map the patterns that led to his double life. You sought different women to fulfill different parts of yourself, she'd explained, because you never learned to be complete on your own. The work was hard, often painful, but necessary. He deleted dating apps, declined opportunities for casual encounters, and focused on building genuine friendships instead. One rainy afternoon, clearing out old files, he found recordings from his early days with Olivia, her laughter captured between tracks, her soft humming as she painted while he composed. The memories no longer came with the sharp edge of regret, but with a gentle acknowledgement of lessons learned. That evening, he wrote her a letter, not asking for reconciliation or forgiveness, but offering an honest accounting of his growth and a sincere apology free from expectations. After reading it over, he sealed the envelope but didn't send it, understanding that sometimes apologies served the apologizer more than the wounded. As summer bloomed fully, both Olivia and Ethan found themselves weathering not just the aftermath of their relationship, but the challenges of becoming who they were meant to be all along. Their shared past had become a distant shoreline from which they'd each embarked on separate voyages of self-discovery. Neither could have predicted the storm that would bring their ships back into the same harbor. Crossroads, the Seattle Art and Music Festival transformed the city each September, drawing artists and musicians from across the country. For Olivia, it marked the anniversary of her professional breakthrough, the first major showing after her breakup with Ethan. For Lucas, it was a chance to support her while she unveiled her newest collection. "You've outdone yourself," he whispered, his arm around her waist as they observed the crowd moving through her exhibition space. Olivia leaned into his embrace, savoring the steadiness he brought to her life. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have," he replied with a smile. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." They parted as Olivia was called away to speak with a potential buyer, leaving Lucas to wander toward the music pavilion. The festival paired visual artists with musicians, creating a tapestry of creative expression across the waterfront. It was there, among the crowd gathered to hear an acoustic set, that Lucas first saw him. A man setting up equipment on the small stage, his movements confident but humble as he adjusted microphones and checked sound levels. Something about him seemed familiar, though Lucas couldn't place it until the announcer introduced him. "Please welcome Ethan Walsh, founder of Lighthouse Recording Studios in Portland." Across the festival grounds, Olivia's phone buzzed with a message from Lucas. "There's someone performing at the Cedar stage you might want to see." Curiosity pulled her away from her exhibition, through the crowd, arriving just as Ethan began to play. She froze at the edge of the audience, watching the man who had once been the center of her world pour his soul into music she'd never heard before. His voice had changed, deeper, more resonant, carrying emotional weight that hadn't been there before. The lyrics spoke of mistakes, growth, and the humility that comes from losing everything you thought defined you. When his eyes found hers in the crowd, there was no dramatic reaction, just a moment of recognition and a slight nod before he continued his set. It was this restraint, this respect for boundaries, that surprised her most. After the performance, she found herself waiting as he packed up his guitar, Lucas having tactfully offered to watch her exhibition space. "Your art is everywhere," Ethan said when he finally approached her. "Congratulations. Your music has changed," she replied. "It's more honest." They moved to a quiet corner of the festival, where the sounds of celebration created a buffer between past and present. He told her about therapy, about losing Natalie for good, about the studio he'd built to help others find their voice. She told him about her success, about Vincent the cat, about learning to trust again, including herself. "I wrote you dozens of letters," he admitted. "Never sent them." "I'm glad," Olivia said. "I needed the silence to hear myself think." As evening descended over the festival, lights twinkled across the water like the future neither had been able to imagine during their painful separation. Lucas texted that he was heading to her place to feed Vincent. "Giving her space without needing to ask if she wanted it. He seems like he deserves you," Ethan observed, having seen their interactions earlier. "That's the difference," Olivia replied. "I've learned it's not about deserving. It's about choosing every day to be honest, even when it's hard." Ethan nodded, understanding filling the space between them. "I'm moving back to Seattle," he said finally. "Not for you, the studio is expanding. But I wanted you to hear it from me." As they stood at this unexpected crossroads, Olivia realized that the fear she'd expected to feel at seeing him again had been replaced by something else. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. The man before her was both familiar and a stranger, as she was to him. "I hope Seattle welcomes you back," she said, meaning it. They parted without promises or dramatic declarations. Just two people who had once hurt each other now wishing each other well on separate paths that might sometimes run parallel without needing to intersect. Walking back to her exhibition under the festival lights, Olivia touched the compass that now hung around her neck. The needle pointed steadily north, reminding her that she knew exactly where she was going. Forward, always forward, with her eyes wide open.